Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis. Thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8+ weather update. Our sunset for tonight, and well, they're starting to get earlier and earlier. 7:07. This was the view earlier this evening. It's looking pretty good out there. We had a lot more when it came to clear skies today. A lot less of that cloud cover that we had yesterday, which made for a nice change of pace. But one thing that definitely did not change: temperatures. We were still talking about being below seasonal, continued with that sea breeze in the afternoon hours. Highs for today, we were in the 70s along the coast. What's typical for this time of the year across inland areas is 90s, low 90s, 90 degrees to be exact, and we were not there. We still had those widespread 80s. 83 degrees for Escondido today, 81 for La Mesa, 84 degrees for El Cajon, also talking about triple-digit heat. That was for the desert, and we had the 80s across the mountains. It was mild, it was beautiful, it was still below seasonal, but an area of high pressure is going to change all of that up by this weekend. Well, it's still going to be beautiful, but we're just going to see a lot less when it comes to that marine layer. So the cloud cover in the morning hours is quickly exiting out in the days ahead. Patchy at best. Also, the potential will be there for some fog in spots, really favoring the coast. So hot temperatures are set to return because of this expanding ridge of high pressure. That brings us about 5 to 10 degrees above seasonal with daytime highs in the 80s along the coast, and also talking about a return to the 90s. There is one particular area that the National Weather Service is monitoring when it does come to heat alerts. So we have an excessive heat watch that has been issued by the National Weather Service, and it will likely become a warning by the next day or so. So it starts on Saturday morning, goes all the way through Sunday night. The peak of the heat is expected on Saturday. That will be for the desert, at least west of the mountains. You're going to see that popping up on your 8-day. It looks to be Sunday. That's because of the direction in which this area of high pressure is coming in from. So the southwest and then expanding across the west, or excuse me, southeast and then expanding across the west. So as a result, that brings the peak of the heat west of the mountains. That would be on Sunday, and then east of the mountains will be on Saturday. So the excessive heat watch has been issued because of the possibility of highs between 108 to 113. On your 8-day, you're going to see 110 forecasted for the desert by Saturday. So that's why I think this is going to transition into that warning as we hit the next couple of days. Your overnight lows, nothing changing there tomorrow morning. You still got widespread 60s for the county, but also some 50s added to that. 59 degrees for Escondido, the same for Poway, 55 degrees for Ramona, 75 degrees anticipated for the desert to start off tomorrow morning, and a 20-degree difference between the desert and for Campo, 55 for an overnight low. Your highs for tomorrow, we're starting to get a little bit closer to that seasonal range across inland areas. 91 degrees for Ramona. You also still have those 80s, widespread upper 80s for Valley Center, the same for El Cajon as well as for Alpine. 92 degrees tomorrow for Campo, 70s right along the coast, 77 degrees as well for downtown, and 81 degrees for Chula Vista. Your surf forecast. Now, we did have some high surf, and that moved in over the weekend. We still had that to start off this week. More impacts were north of us for Orange County, where they had a high surf advisory. That expired at 8 p.m. tonight, but we're talking about the elevated surf that we had around 3 to 5 feet. It's coming down to 2 to 4. That will be tomorrow as well as for Friday, but changes are in store by this weekend. Also, a moderate risk of rip currents at our local beaches, regardless of whether or not you're a skilled swimmer. You really should be cautious when it gets to that moderate or high risk. And it's going to go from moderate to high as we transition into the weekend. Also, that UV index very high. We are keeping a close eye when it comes to Hova. Hova is a major hurricane in the eastern Pacific. No direct impacts for us here in San Diego County or just basically the United States. It's a rather large storm system. You're talking about a major hurricane, as it is clocking wind gusts or wind speeds, sustained wind speeds up to 130 miles per hour. Also moving towards the west-northwest at about 15 miles per hour. So it's picked up a little bit more speed compared to yesterday when it was around 9 miles per hour. But Hova will continue to hold on to major hurricane strength through tonight and through tomorrow morning. It's moving over some much warmer waters. That's why it went from around this time yesterday being a tropical storm, and now you're talking about a major hurricane. Those sea surface temperatures into the 80s and even 90s in some spots. Then it starts to get into some cooler waters. That's when it weakens. You're seeing it as a Category 2 by Friday night at 11 p.m. and then a tropical storm by Monday. So it's going to make that transition as we hit the weekend forecast. As mentioned, no direct impacts for us here because we have an area of high pressure is going to keep it well towards the south of us. But indirect, we're talking about high surf with the passage of this storm system. So when it comes to Hova, it's going to generate that high surf, especially along south-facing beaches. The surf looks to be about 4 to 6 feet with suds up to 7 feet. That's impacting Orange County. As far as San Diego County is concerned, 3 to 5 feet, especially for North County, north of Carlsbad. Now, strong rip currents, longshore current, that's going to be an issue on Saturday all the way in through Monday. So when I'm talking about that, when I was talking about if you're not a skilled swimmer, keep it in mind for a moderate risk when it comes to rip currents, but this weekend you're definitely advised not to be in the water as it does elevate to a high risk. We're talking about hot highs this weekend. As mentioned, 5 to 10 degrees above seasonal. You have a return of the 80s for coastal communities. Also looking at those 90s set to return across inland areas. Now we're talking about a whole lot of heat this weekend, but you're also noticing there's some cloud cover on there. We're going to have added cloud cover because of the circulation of that area of high pressure. That's going to bring in a lot more of upper level clouds. So those altocumulus clouds that really make for gorgeous sunsets, that's what we'll see. But we're not talking about measurable rainfall for us here when it does come to that moisture moving in because of that area of high pressure coming in from the southeast. It's just going to add cloud cover to the scenery. You're still talking about a whole lot of heat, but then by next week we start to have a dip in the jet stream. So an area of low pressure knocking our temperatures below seasonal yet again. It looks like the coolest day so far on your 8-day is going to be Thursday of next week as we go from those 90s across inland areas back into the upper 70s. Across the mountains and the desert, climbing with those temperatures by this weekend. And also noting the fact that the cloud cover is going to be added to the mountains and the desert. So it's just those high clouds. We were thinking maybe there was a slight chance we could see some measurable precipitation across the mountains, but models are really not picking up on that. It's just typically you start to see that a little bit more when you have high pressure systems coming out of the southeast that's tapping into some monsoonal moisture, especially off of the Gulf. But at best, those chances are below 10%. So as of this evening, just adding some clouds to the scenery, you're going to see those out there, and then still holding on to some heat until we get into next week and we back off from the weekend heat. Thanks for tuning in.